How you doing today, guys? Today is a great video. It's going to be over the first 18 months of my journey and a couple of the first deals. One in particular that's got a lot of good training points that I'm going to point out as I go through. This video is going to help you save thousands and thousands of dollars when you start your business. So, I'm going to quickly recap on who I am and how I got here and why you should listen to me. And then you're going to kind of get to see some of the struggle I went through, the real life struggle, because it wasn't always easy for me and it's not going to be easy for you. And a lot of you are going to be in a position that I was in when you hear this story, and you're probably going through that right now. So I want to help you. So, quick recap. I was a world-class poker player from 2003 to 2011. My very own United States government shut down the online poker sites. I was too young and too naive to not know that good things do not last forever. I basically spent my money as fast as it came in, and I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't have any money when basically my life was taken from me. My freedom was stolen by my own government. So, what did I do? I went out into network marketing for like a month. I didn't like it. I went into insurance for like a month. I didn't like it. And then I decided that I was going to go into real estate investing. Everybody told me, Connor, you need money to invest in real estate. You can't invest in real estate. You are a poker player. Why do you think you're educated enough, or why do you think you can go out and be a real estate investor? You're going to waste all your money. You're going to ruin your life, blah, 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 blah. I had so many doubters, family members, friends. I don't think anybody supported my decision. But did I care? It was my life, my decision, and I was going to do it. And so, what did I do? What did I do? I thought I needed to shorten my learning curve. So, I went out to one of those big national guru companies, right? Those guys that come on the radio and come through your area. Now, I'm not going to say which one, but I went through one of these companies and I spent $35,000 on something that was equivalent it was basically equivalent to a 2-week YouTube education. It was the biggest ripoff I'd ever seen. They had tricked me into taking out extra credit cards to be able to buy the program. And so, I had about $25,000 in my account when I started my business. So, I did have some money. I wasn't starting out completely broke. And I know a lot of you are starting out broke. But by the time I became successful, you'll find out I didn't have any money. In fact, I had a lot less money. Because quickly you go from having $25,000 to negative 10 when you spend $35,000. I had about $15,000 in credit cards. They had convinced me that doing a wholesale deal was as easy as just going out to a realtor sign, calling them and saying, I'll buy that house, and then finding a buyer and selling it to them for $20,000 later that next day. They didn't explain to me that it's tough to find deals. They literally made me seem like all I had to do was go find a realtor sign. I was like, I got 20 realtor signs in my neighborhood right now. I'm going to be rich like this month. So don't buy these high pressure sales techniques that they give you, because you may end up in the same situation I was, which was having to buy a credit line, which I thought I was buying a credit line. This is a good point. Pay attention to this. There's a lot of companies out there that are telling you they're going to give you credit lines. What they're giving you is business credit cards. They're different. A credit line, you have checkbook control. You can write a single check off. So, for example, you get a $100,000 credit line. You can write a $100,000 check to buy a property off of it. There are also a lot less interest rates. There are a lot less headache to manipulate and use when you're doing your real estate business. The problem with getting business credit cards is you get a lot of them. They break them up. Now you got $7,000 on one card, $11,000 on another, $3,000 on another. They all have different rates and different promotional periods. Some of them you can only take X amount of cash off, and if you do, you're paying 20+% interest, which is part of how I got in money trouble. So be careful with using credit cards. I did use credit cards. I still use credit cards. I have a lot of credit cards. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of them, but I use them smartly. Be careful, or you're going to get into a tough situation, like I did. But because my training company that I paid $35,000 to was so great at what they did, they helped me so much on my marketing campaigns that I only spent $20,000, $30,000 in failed marketing and didn't get a deal. You think after paying that type of money to someone, they'd at least kind of help you know what type of mailers to mail, who to mail to, and kind of hold your hand at least a little bit so you don't get your face kicked in, right? That didn't happen for me. I spent $10,000 on a mail campaign and got like 7 calls because I didn't know what I was doing. It didn't even matter if I had gotten the calls because I wouldn't have known how to convert it into a lead or even do a contract. So I recommend learning a little bit about the business before you just jump into it, because you could end up in a tough situation like I was. I ended up $60,000 in debt, a few months away from bankruptcy. How did I get out? This is my true story. So, my very first real estate transaction, after 6 months from the very first day I decided to get into real estate, I worked every single day, 100 hours a week without a day off. By the time I finally found someone who had a property for sale, I did what's called a joint venture wholesale deal. I took somebody who had a property for sale and I connected them with somebody who wanted to buy the property. Now, my first mistake I did was I didn't take the time to learn contracts. I was so concerned on trying to find deals and buyers and learn the business, I didn't want to learn the contracts. Contracts scared me. Get to know your contracts right now. Here's what you do. Take the contract you're going to use. Read it 5 times a day for the next week, and you never have to read it again. Go find someone in the business, a realtor or an investor around you that's filled one out and done a deal and asked to see a copy of their old one. Practice this contract, because my first deal, it cost me $3,300 because I didn't know how to do a contract. And I made a big mistake, which is I trusted other people in this business. And so I was supposed to get half of the assignment, right? I was told it was going to be $2,000. So I was thinking I was going to get $1,000. But at the time, I could barely make my credit card minimums. And if you go back to my first video, at this point, I had to literally get a job working for minimum wage after I had made millions of dollars in poker, had a business marketing degree, and I'm here working for minimum wage. So I had to make my credit card minimums because I was trying to take out more credit. What I was trying to do was buy more time because I always knew I was going to make it. That's the mentality you need to have. But so $1,000 would have been a lot to me. But what happened was I only got a check for $700 sent to me. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, well, we had to clean out the property a little bit. So we spent some money on that. So we took it out of your side. I was like, that's great. That's nice of you. Unfortunately for me, the guy I sold the property to was one of my close friends and told me that that guy had actually made an $8,000 assignment fee. So he had shorted me and screwed me out of $3,300, which at the time would have literally been like the world to me. And so my very first deal, because I didn't know how to do contracts right, and I was scared of them, cost me a lot of money at a time when I really, really needed it. I was eating snack ramen, $3,300. I at least could have moved up a little bit on the food chain. So, learn your contracts. But now I'm going to talk about a deal, my second deal, the first house I took title to. And I think some of you are going to find this, some of you emotional, some of you will think it's hilarious. Some of you will say, yeah, I'm going through this right now. Some of you are going to make a lot of money from the money I'm going to help save you by watching this video. So, here's basically what happened. I was doing what most people do, what new investors do, which is free marketing. And what's the most common free marketing for a new investor who has no money starting the business? Craigslist. And I get a call from a girl. She tells me she's got a mobile home for sale for like $13,000. And I said, okay, great. Tell me about it. You know, I hadn't really thought about doing mobile homes, but I knew that the cheapest I knew anything was rented around me was $500. I was like, even at $500, I'll get a good return on this. And so I kind of trusted her when she sent me the photos to look at. Now here's a good point to take from this. Don't just trust the photos somebody sends you. Make sure they're present, current photos of the property. Have you ever been on like a dating site, right? And you're like, wow, you know, she or he is good looking. I can't believe they're talking to me right now. And you set up a date and you go out to wherever you're meeting up, and all of a sudden you walk in, they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so. And you're like, ugh, you know, yeah, sorry, I think I'm looking for someone else. Make sure you're getting the right photos of the property you're dealing with, because what happened was I drove an hour and a half out to a tiny little town, Honey Grove, Texas, has 1,800 or so people in it. I went to a mobile home 3 miles outside the town, sitting literally 20 yards from the highway. And right now, that's a lot of time and gas for me when I was doing that. One of my big mistakes is I went that far away before I knew what I was doing. Now, investing outside your market and at a distance is not a big deal as your skill as an investor improves, but I wouldn't recommend it when you start out. It's just logistically not favorable for you when you're starting your business. So I get out there and I'm looking at my GPS and it's saying your location is to the left. And I'm like, I don't see it anywhere. I can't see, where is this property? All I see is this landfill. And I'm like, wait a second. Is that it there buried under all of that trash? And so the property that I had in these photos with a nice green yard and clean fence and a trampoline in the yard and looked all happy and like you'd see at the end of a rainbow, all of a sudden looks like the biggest nightmare, like a tsunami had hit it. And when I went inside, it looked like a hurricane had gone off inside. The property had trash everywhere. So before you run out to a property and waste that much time, make sure you know what you're doing and you get the right photos. Anyways, I was already out there. So I decided, what the hell, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this property. Now it's in the middle of the winter. It's freezing cold. I get out. I'm walking through the yard. It's all mushy, sleet and ice and rain everywhere, mud. And I get up close to the front of the property. And what comes running around the corner? Some giant Godzilla turkey. Like, I didn't even know they could get this big, comes running at me. And I'm like, what the, you know, like, holy crap, what is going on? And followed behind him is his army. And I kind of like that because, you know, this is the Investor Army channel. But his army was comprised of this. A bunch of chickens, ducks, baby chickens, a pig, and some wild dogs, right? I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so they come running up, and I'm surrounded in this swarm of birds that I can't even believe what's going on. And the homeowner comes out. She's like, oh, hey, it's no big deal. And I'm like, yeah, maybe to you it's not. And so I go inside, and I get to meet the other half of the animal party, right? There's gerbils and, like, I don't even know what they are, weasels and cats, like cats in every cabinet and every corner. I'm like, this is insane. Sometimes you're going to see the dark side of the world in this business, guys. You're going to see what most people don't realize is actually going on out there. And you never want to embarrass these people. You never want to shed light on their situation. But just know there is a human element to this business, and you are going to come across this type of stuff. And they had actually had a cast iron stove in the property. And they couldn't afford to fix the heat for the property. So they were literally burning their house away. They were tearing up the trim and doors off their cabinets. They had pulled down half their fence, and they were literally burning their property for heat. Can you believe that? Some of the stuff you come across is going to shock you. Just be prepared. And so I'm like, there's no way I can give them $13,000. I literally had $5,000 to my name on credit cards left. That's it. And I was facing bankruptcy. I had like maybe 2 months to go before I was literally going to have to file bankruptcy, and I was going to fight it to the end every single day. I promised myself I'm not going to throw in the towel like cowards. I'm going to fight it until I literally can't fight it anymore. And so I made an agreement with them. Can you believe this? This house's property is literally right off the highway. There's semi-trucks driving by. There's all sorts of stuff wrong with it. And I'm still so desperate to get a deal. That's what it was. It was desperation. I was like, if they'll sell it to me for $5,000, I can maybe fix it up for $5,000. I'll rent it for $500, and I'll bring in, after taxes and insurance, $400 a month. $4,800 into $10,000. I was like, that's 50% almost cash on cash return. That's not bad. So my goal was to borrow money from my father, $10,000 to buy the property fixed up, get a tenant in there right away as fast as possible, and start getting that $500. And I was like, that would be enough for me to pay down my credit card minimums and just buy me time. That's why I was trying to buy time. You hear me talk about time over and over. This is partly why I'm so focused on it, buying more of it. And so I negotiate the deal. I buy the property. The first day I get there, I did a big mistake that a lot of new investors do, which is do their own work on their own properties. Why don't you do this? It takes too much time. You can't leverage across multiple properties. If you're working on one property, your business isn't running. You're stuck there working. But in the beginning, some of you are going to have to do this like I did. And so what happened was I had to pull up the kitchen floor, which was this old, ugly, checkered tile. Now, they had done their own work, obviously, because they had glued it down to the floor and the subfloor with screws and cement and all sorts of who knows what they did to it. But I couldn't use a normal tile popper. I couldn't just go in there and chip it up where the tiles came up one by one. So what happened was they would break, and they'd break around the screws. So I literally had to take a mini crowbar because I couldn't afford better tools. And I had to take a crowbar and a hammer and go in a circle and break around each screw. There was hundreds and hundreds of them. It took me all day to pull up this floor. And if you've ever gone and played baseball and hit a baseball off the end of your bat and know what it feels like to get a stinger, that's what it felt like every time I hit this after a while. Every time I'd hit it, and I knew it was coming, I did it over and over and over all day in this cold house. By the end of the day, my hands were so swollen, it was literally as if I had gone and blown up my hands. They were like balloons. I couldn't even open the door when I was trying to leave. I had to use my wrist to open the door. But I knew if I didn't get this house up, operating, producing money, I was in a tough spot. I was literally dazed like a clock, ticking down like a time bomb. So I had to get this done. So I get up there the next morning, going in to take the tile. A couple people I had up there helping me remove trash from the property and the tile. I'm looking on the ground. There's all this blood everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get sued. It's the first thought that went through my mind. And I'm looking around. I'm like, is somebody hurt? Somebody bleeding? And they're like, Connor, look at your hand. So I look down, and my hand is completely red all the way up my arm, and I'm dripping blood everywhere. This is a good example of why you should wear gloves when dealing with tile, because tile is sharp. When it breaks, it's sharp as glass. In fact, it was so sharp I didn't even know I had cut myself. And so now I'm bleeding everywhere. Did I have the time to even go to the hospital? I probably didn't need a hospital. I could have got a couple stitches, but I basically duct taped myself. I did a bush fix in the middle of this landfill property because I was more focused. I had to get this done. I had to get it up and operational. So we're literally rehabbing this property. It's got neon pink, neon green walls. It's falling apart. They've been burning it down. I'm just trying to do whatever I can to get it up and going. So I had gone home and I realized that I can't keep driving out here. I don't have the money and I don't have the time. This is the problem with going so far away. So I said, I'm going to stay up there next time. And so I go up there, right? And I get there and I bring a sleeping bag. It's the middle of the winter. And so this day, I had now kind of got the inside pretty close to done. And I was now having to get the yard ready. And I actually had some individuals come contact me off Facebook who wanted to rent the property. And I told them I'd be done by Friday. I didn't realize that it takes a lot longer than you think to rehab properties. And so I told them I'll have them done by Friday. It was like Tuesday. And I get up to the yard, and I had brought my lawnmower with me because all across the yard, about chest high, was all sorts of these tall, skinny bushes and plants. I don't even know what kind they were. But I bought a house on a half an acre lot, right? And so I was trying to cut them down. My lawnmower wouldn't go over them. It wouldn't cut it. So now what am I going to do? I don't have a weed eater, and even if I did, I don't think it would have cut them down. And nor could I go and afford to buy one right now. So I went to the Family Dollar and I bought a machete, one of those cheap machetes, right? Can't believe I really did this. So I was on my hands and knees. So I get back to the property, right? And I brought my stuff up there, everything I needed, right? My toothbrush and everything, except I forgot my boots. Now, by the time I drove all the way back home, it'd been as much time and gas as it would be to go buy new ones. And I didn't have any money to buy any new ones anyways. So what did I have to do? I was in flip-flops. It's like 20 degrees outside. There's sleet. and mushy snow, water puddles and mud everywhere. And I literally, on my hands and knees, all day long, with a machete, would grab a handful and chop it off. And I went around this entire property and chopped up the entire yard over the next day or so. But that night, I didn't have time to go home. The water wasn't working at the property because the pipes had frozen. The HVAC and the furnace system wasn't working, so I had no heat. I was muddy, wet, beat up, had an open wound in my hand. I was laying there shivering in a cold room, wondering, did I ruin my life? Did all these people that told me I'd never make it, all these haters and doubters, they're starting to sink into my mind, and I was starting to believe them. It was tough. It was really tough. Like, I had to sit there while semi-trucks drove by all night long keeping me up. And when they weren't there to keep me up, giant rats running around my head, scurrying around in the middle of the night, did a pretty good job as well. So I shivered all night. And I got up, I couldn't complain, and I went back into the field and I finished chopping up everything. I had a few people come help me, some friends and family. Thankfully, I have a good family that's willing to do this for me. And I got this property up and operational close enough for these people to move in on Friday. Now, I didn't do the right thing screening my tenants. I did what most people do on their first property, which is they're desperate to put anybody in to get the property creating cash flow. I just wanted money coming out of it. And so what I did was I put the first person that came to me, I put them in. It was a woman and her 2 children and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's older son, who was about 20, who clearly had some issues. He was into drugs and he wasn't quite all there, let's just say. So I have them in there, right? And now I'm a landlord. Business is great. You know, I survived the headache of cleaning up the yard. Oh, by the way, I didn't even tell y'all about. So I couldn't take all the stuff to the dump. So what I did is I built a giant bonfire in the backyard because I thought I was outside of city limits. But I realized that was not the case when the fire department came up there. But that's too long to go into that story. But that was also a very interesting situation. I almost did burn down Honey Grove, Texas. So if you lived there, you got lucky. And so I had these people on my property, right? Literally the first week, I get a phone call. It's a police officer saying, I'm at your property. Great. It's just one thing after another, right? And eventually it was just like a dispute. They were fighting or whatever, and he left. Next week, same thing. A police officer is there. And what I find out is the lady inside that's living there, my tenant, is married. But she's not married to the guy that she moved into the property with that I thought she was together with. But he was still there. But guess who was there now as well? Her husband. And so now her husband, her boyfriend, their whatever type of son was living there, and their children are all living in this property. And you can understand that really quick it kind of turned into a Jerry Springer type of situation. But what am I supposed to do? How can I handle the situation? And unfortunately, there's what's called squatters' rights. And because the other boyfriend and his son or his brother had been there for over 2 weeks or whatever it was, that they literally had to get evicted. So the people that were in renting the property would have had to evict them to get them to leave. So we had this huge mess on our hands. And also right about the time, the furnace, which was kind of on and off, and some nights it would work, some nights it wouldn't, they had little heaters in there, and they were giving up on them, and they were saying it's too long, it won't work anymore, or they're not working well enough anymore. And so here I am having to go either replace the HVAC system and the furnace system or put window units in the property. Might I remind you, I have no money. I can't even barely feed myself. And I bring someone out to look at the property. He gives me an $8,000 bid, and the reason why is because the turkey and the chickens and the ducks had been getting up underneath the house, and they had pecked away the entire venting system. All the ductwork was eaten away. I couldn't even make this stuff up. And so, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this situation? And this is where I kind of stumbled across owner financing. So I was watching YouTube videos like you are right now, because YouTube helped change my life. YouTube and home study courses is how I changed my life, and mentors. Not these big training companies that rip people off and destroy lives. It's disgusting what they're doing around our country. It's part of the reason why I'm filming these videos, to help you for free, because you don't need that. So, what am I going to do, right? So I offered to sell them the house at $25,000, $3,000 down, because I was like, if at least I get some money in my pocket, I can have some time and buy some breathing room to take some of the weight of the world off of my shoulders. And I can pay down my credit card minimums. Maybe I'll even go splurge and buy myself a hamburger, right? And so we get to an agreement, and we arrange a closing at a title company. Once again, I didn't like contracts, so I didn't figure out how to do it. We were supposed to just close at the title company. And we are 3 days away from closing on this property, right? And I'm getting more excited as we get closer, because I feel like a little breather room's coming in my life. I get a phone call. Once again, it's an individual, a man I don't know. He's like, who is in my property? And I'm like, I don't understand. Which property are you talking about? And he gives me the address of the property that I own, or that I thought I owned. Because what had happened was, this individual had an older daughter who sold me the property, I thought. But she had only owned the land, and she was in agreements to be paying the property off to her father. And she and her father were now estranged. And so I contacted the title company. And when I asked them what was going on, I said, look, here on the title, on the county records, it says the mobile home has improved value on the property, on the land. And they kind of didn't say anything. And I got a bad feeling, a really bad feeling. And quickly I realized that I had only bought the land. I had not bought the mobile home too. This is a good example. This is a good lesson. In Texas, we need what's called a statement of ownership and location. You cannot just close on a mobile home. You have to go through the Texas Housing and Community Fairs. You can find them online. And so now I had a property that I was $15,000 in, $10,000 I borrowed, the last $5,000 I had, hoping just to get some money out of it. And I now owned a piece of land in a podunk part of Honey Grove, Texas, worth less than $1,000. You can feel the world get pulled out from underneath me. So what was I going to do? Well, he threatened me to turn over the property. And I threatened him and said, if you come on my property, you're trespassing. And I'm trying to figure out if the title company is going to help me or what's going on. And I was too inexperienced and didn't know what I was going to do. So I was telling him if he paid me for my repairs and bought the property, I would just give up the land and he could have the house back because it was in bad condition. I showed him the pictures and he didn't want the property. I don't blame him. And I sure as hell didn't want this property anymore. I wanted to get rid of it more than anything. And he wasn't going to let me do that. So he agreed to sell me the property, you know, after a long battle with lawyers and everything, and we're basically getting sued. And then finally we came to an agreement. He decided to let me out of it for $7,000, which is pretty nice of him, because it could have been a lot nastier. But he understood that we were both being taken advantage of by his daughter. So I borrowed another $7,000, right? And now I'm in the property for a little over $20,000. I have a property on the side of the highway. What am I going to do with this thing? So I hope the people in there are still going to buy the property, but now there's so much headache. Do I really want to sell it to them? Nor now did they even have the money to purchase it. They didn't even have the down payment money now. So now I'm like, what am I going to do? So all these bad things happen in a row. And I contacted the guy that let me buy the property from him. Well, I say let me, he forced me to buy the property from him. And I told him what was going on. And he had told me that those 4 houses, there's basically 4 little houses, mobile homes on the strip right here. And he said that the 3 of them were owned by a family. They've been trying to buy that one from him for years. So finally I catch a little break, right? Because I was going to sell it for $25,000. And what happened was I contacted the neighbor and they said, yes, we still want to buy the property. In fact, we went in it when it was rehabbed and it looked pretty good, and they couldn't understand why the property wasn't sold to them. And they didn't understand because the daughter had undercut her father. Here's my first break in real estate. They offered me $45,000 for a house I was in at like $21,000, $22,000. I sold it to them on payments, $3,000 down, 10.25% interest on a 15-year note. Now, if you run an amortization calculator, I can't really remember, but I think it breaks up to like $88,000 over 15 years and like a $490 payment. So what does that mean? So it basically means I'm going to be bringing in about $6,000 a year off the property that I'm into $21,000, and I'm going to get that every year for 15 years. And if you look at, I only have to pay off my underlying loan amount or to my credit cards and my family, $21,000, who my family was nice enough to not charge me interest. So I will never say that I didn't have any help. But this is basically as much help as I did have. I was going to net about $66,000, I believe, over the next 15 years off this property. So what did I learn from this? I learned that real estate is forgiving. And I learned that you have to know deep inside your heart that you're going to make it and that things can go good even when things are going bad, because I know a lot of you are right now stuck in the mud, stuck in a rut, just like I was in the snow, up to my knees in mud and sleet and icy water, chopping down bushes with a machete. You have to believe you're going to make it. You just cannot give up. So my first deal went bad. My second deal, I don't know, what do you think? Did it go pretty bad until the end? But you don't know how a deal is going to end up until the end. So you never emotionally get elated and get excited until a deal closes, because if you think you're going to make $40,000 and it falls through and you don't, you're crushed. And then if you think a deal is going bad, you never let yourself feel that negative emotion until it's closed out. So just try to stay neutral in your emotions, because you never know the result until the deal's closed. So what happened was I got my money. I got my $3,000 down. This gave me the money to pay down some of my credit cards a little bit, buy another month, right? Have a little money to do something. And I continued on using Craigslist, and I got lucky, and I wholesaled a house for $6,000. A few weeks later, I did it again. In the next year, I did that 36 times. So a year later, from when I was working for minimum wage, sweeping up BBs at Academy Sports and Outdoors, trying to wonder how my life had fallen apart so fast, it turned around just as quick. And I got a call less than a year later from an individual who wanted to sell me their house at a price I didn't believe in when they told me. And I wholesaled that house the same day for almost $80,000. That's 80,000, not 18. So, what happened after that? A few days later, I wholesaled another one for almost $20,000. And so, less than a year later, I wholesaled 2 houses for almost $100,000 in a week. Things can change quickly for you in this business if you don't give up. The biggest problem I see with so many investors is y'all give up too quick. And after that moment, I never looked back. I fought the whole way through, and you're going to hear some more of my stories coming forward, because a lot of you are going through this, and a lot of you need some inspiration and some hope when things seem dark. It's tough being an entrepreneur. We are in the world of competition. If you do not fight all day, every day, you may get left behind. But things can change in this business. This is not a get-rich-quick business, but it is a get-rich business. And wholesaling absolutely changed my life. So where did I go from there? I went on to continue on wholesaling houses, doing a lot of joint venture wholesale deals, virtual joint venture wholesale deals. I'm one of the very few people in the country even talking about what joint venture virtual wholesaling is. Not many people are even talking about what virtual wholesaling is. I went into flipping houses, high-end real estate, all sorts of types of properties, owner financing, creating notes, selling notes. Now I travel around the country and I speak. I have students all around the country. And I'm here taking my time, when you know how much I believe in time, to share with you some of the things and some of the wisdom and knowledge and some of the things that I picked up through hardships, so I can hopefully help people who are trying to make it in this business, because there is a better way to do it. And what you're doing right now, learning for free on YouTube, is the best way to do it. It wasn't these big gurus that changed my life. It was hard work, relentless ambition, not giving up, doing enough home study courses, watching enough YouTube videos, reading the right books, listening to the right seminars, going to the right meetups, and going to boot camps and joining masterminds. This business will change your life if you don't give up. So I hope you kind of took a little bit of hope and inspiration for those of y'all, if you're out there dealing with some giant turkey at your property right now, or you're dealing with a property that every day you wake up and you hope and you just want to go back to sleep because you'd rather not be waking up to face that problem. I know what that feels like. But you just have to get up, work hard, push through it, and if you just keep going every day, things can turn around for you. So, if you like this video, and you think I shared something of value to you, or any of it was funny to you, or for any reason you want to go ahead and support this channel, we'd be much appreciative. Because over the next coming years, I'm going to be releasing a ton of content on this site that can hopefully expedite your process so you don't have to go through the long process of learning the hard way like I did. So until next time, this is Connor Steinberg. Thank you for coming to the Investor Army YouTube channel.